Hello, everyone, and welcome to today's Mentera Care Chat. My name is Natasha Bowman. I'm Mentera's global brand ambassador and your host for the next 30 minutes. During each Care Chat, you'll learn specific tools and tips and tricks you can implement in your organization to support mental health in the workplace. As we begin today's discussion, you'll note there is a chat box on the lower portion of your screen. So if you have any questions, please feel free to type those in there, and we'll try our very best to get to as many of them at the end of our time today. So today we're going to be discussing, I'm so excited about this, the topic of behavioral health trends in the workplace. Is it fad or the future? And I'm so excited to welcome our expert guest speaker, Solome and I hope I say this right, Tibebu.
Tibebu.
Yes, I practiced it and I still got it wrong. Sorry. She is the founder and CEO of Going Digital, behavioral health tech. And I'm so glad for her to be here. She has over 20 years of health and welfare consulting experience. And in her role at Hilton, she oversees U.S. health benefits and looks after the overall well-being efforts for the Hilton team members. So welcome, Solome, to Mentera's Care Chat. Why don't you tell us a little bit more about yourself and your work?
Awesome. Thank you so much, Natasha. So excited to be here. Thank you, everyone, for joining us. Been a fan of Natasha from online forever. So this is surreal. Excited to meet and share more and discuss this topic, which is really important to me personally and professionally. So as you had alluded to, I've always been involved in behavioral health ever since I was an anxious teenager. I struggled a lot with panic attacks, obsessive compulsive disorder as an adolescent, and having immigrant parents who really didn't know where to turn and navigate this healthcare system. It actually took us 4 different providers to finally get the correct diagnosis of what I was experiencing. Wow. And you can imagine, them hearing obsessive compulsive disorder. We've never even heard that phrase in either of our languages. So just even more challenges to navigate what I was experiencing. But ultimately, as a young person, I wanted other teens to be able to access help. I was reading books on Friday nights at Barnes & Noble all about what is OCD and panic attacks. And as cliche as it is, knowledge really is power. And that psychoeducation, it made such a huge difference to me. And that's when I said, how can other teens get access to this kind of information? So I started anxietyandteens.com in 2006 when I was 16 and continued that nonprofit for 10 years and have been involved in the mental health, innovation, and tech ecosystem ever since.
Oh, what an amazing story. And just kudos to you for after that diagnosis, just learning more about it. And then once you learn more about it, just to spread that knowledge and awareness, I think that's what we need more of when it comes to mental health. But kudos at 16 years old that you took that upon yourself to be able to do that. So thank you so much for your advocacy. And I just can't wait to just dig further into this conversation, considering that background and your work in this area. So today we're here to talk about behavioral health trends in the workplace. So my first question for you is, can you tell us about wider industry trends and shifts across the healthcare ecosystem you're seeing, and how are these affecting employers?
Yeah, absolutely. And thank you. Yes, I'll just a note on the 16 years old. I reflect how much time has passed. I cringed a little when you said 20 years experience in the space. I don't know where the time went, but so much has changed in that time. Of course, in the last few years through COVID, just what has happened in the digital space as it relates to mental health and substance use care for employers, consumers, payers, so on and so forth. It's been quite transformative. And now, today, as my role as a community leader in behavioral health access and innovation, now more than ever, we're seeing more personalized solutions.
Mm.
The next generation of employees are talking about and seeking out mental health support and even expecting it of employers more than ever. These have huge impacts on recruiting, retention, benefits teams. And so, yeah, excited to talk a little bit more about specific solutions that are available. But before then, going back to this idea as the next generation is expecting mental health supports in the workplace.
Mm.
We hear that often, mostly in the context of stigma being reduced amongst this next generation. We're talking about mental health more with our peers. My devil's advocate to that is I believe we're talking more about mild and moderate anxiety and depression. I still think there's quite a bit of stigma around severe mental illness and substance use care. And so, of course, that impacts our employees going to utilize said services if employers make it available. We'll get to that.
Yeah.
But a little further, I also would like to add that this next generation, millennials, we are, as I was alluding to earlier and getting a grip on, we're getting older and we are becoming the managers and the leadership. And I think that's also a very important part about creating cultures of embracing mental health in the workplace that we've never seen before.
Yeah, absolutely. And you're right. We do hear more open discussion around anxiety, depression, those types of things, people being very open with that. But I was diagnosed with serious mental illness with bipolar disorder. And I just don't hear a lot of people talking about that as openly, right, as others. So hopefully in the future, there will be equity amongst mental health conditions, and the conversations will be, no matter what you're diagnosed with, right, you have that level of comfort and the stigma is removed, right? So you can discuss, what challenges you're facing, what your successes are, et cetera, et cetera. So you alluded to, you're going to talk to us now, and I can't wait to hear about this because I know this is something that you're knee deep in. So can you share with us what you're witnessing around the industry for technology innovators, right, who are breaking barriers? Like what's hot and moving the needle? And are these technologies and applications helping to address any of the trends you mentioned just previously?
Oh, yes. Very juicy topic.
Yes.
So, for me, I like to caveat things with, our community, our conference, our events is called Behavioral Health Tech. But personally, it's not really just the technology that I care about. I'm not an engineer by training or a clinician for that matter. It's really insofar as the tech is actually expanding access to more care for more people, higher quality. And so that's really what excites me. And now, in terms of trends, the mild to moderate mass generalized CBT for everyone, one size fits all, that is like table stakes at this point. We've moved on. We're in the next chapter of innovation, really, in our space, such that we have more specific solutions to specific communities and specific conditions. So, for example, there are entire companies focused exclusively on supporting obsessive compulsive disorder, or entire companies dedicated to only virtual eating disorder support. I think this is, as somebody who it took so long to get that diagnosis of OCD, it took so long for me to find a community of others who are experiencing the same thing. There are specific protocols, exposure and response prevention in particular, that are specific to treating OCD compared to just general CBT. And so that even as an individual going through those experiences, as someone with lived experience, I can see the power of these more dedicated point solutions. But then the flip side is now employers are faced with even more point solutions than they had before. So we're in a phase of how can the innovators in our space too have equal responsibility, I feel, to help support the employers build an integrated portfolio and make sure that each of the solutions are talking to one another as much as possible, that employees are not confused and overwhelmed by how many tools could be made available to them, that there's a real strategy there is going to be important.
Very good. Yeah, I totally agree with that. And if we think about these, and you talked about, the different types of diagnosis, et cetera, et cetera. Can you dig more into or give some examples of specific tools or technologies that are addressing certain things, such as serious mental illness issues, eating disorders, addiction, OCD, suicide prevention? Do you have any particular examples that you can share with the audience about that?
Oh, definitely. Yeah, and of course, save the best for last, not necessarily the best, but where the most demand is right now, my goodness, is pediatrics,
Yes.
youth mental health. We have a crisis, and every time I attend an employer focused or benefits focused event, time and again, this topic of how do we support our workforce in helping their dependents struggling with mental health issues. It's just the demand is so overwhelming right now. And so very excited to see many companies in that space emerging. The examples I mentioned earlier, like NOCD is the company that supports all 50 states for obsessive compulsive disorder.
Okay.
QUIP, same thing, all 50 states. Home-based virtual eating disorder support for youth and adults now. Now there's also a new swath of SMI-focused companies, Firsthand, Vana, so many that partner with local community-based organizations and peers to help the employee or member, depending on the setting, get to the care they need. Others, back to youth mental health, we've got traditional virtual provider networks like Brightline, Backpack. There's some that are school-based like Hazel Health, another Be Me Health. I'll give this as an example because Be Me is one where they are balancing tech and touch in a way that is utilizing our very limited provider workforce, especially specialists in pediatrics, only for acute cases. And this is what excites me about technology in mental health today. If you think about a spectrum of innovation, on one hand, we have super novel, Jetson, totally AI-driven. The provider is not even involved. It's really the new stuff. And then on the other end of the spectrum, there's not so much innovation at all. It's pretty much just taking one-to-one therapy and putting it online. Well, that's not doing a whole lot to maximize our very small workforce today, provider workforce, that is. What I'm excited about is this middle area of solutions that have the provider in the driver's seat still, but they serve as workforce extenders. The technology is allowing the clinician to see that many more patients by way of technology. And one way they might be doing that is through triaging. We can evaluate an employee and assess how acute are their symptoms. And if they're more on the mild side, well, they could be recommended more self-serve tools versus if they're more acute, well, then they could be the ones that get referred to the specialist. So that's just one example.
Oh, wonderful, wonderful. Oh, thank you for providing all of those examples. And you just know them off the top of your head, which is fantastic. And I guess you would. I want to talk about an exciting event that you have coming up, right? Why don't you share more about this event and who's going to be there and all the exciting things that are going to take place? It's the first time you're doing it in person, but let's hear more about it.
Thank you, Natasha. Yes. What's the best thing I could do for my anxiety? Let's start a conference. So, yes, it was COVID, March 2020. I realized all the in-person conferences were getting canceled. And I said, there should be a mass virtual behavioral health conference that is accessible. And so within a few months, we as in me and a college intern, organized the first Going Digital Behavioral Health Tech virtual conference. We had 2,500 registrants.
Wow.
We, in lieu of a registration fee, we asked people to make a donation to an annual nonprofit partner, which you've
Mhm.
continued to do every year.
Oh, wow. Mhm.
So the next year we had 4,000 people. Last year we had 5,600 registrants. And now we're going in person for our first hybrid
Wow.
conference in November.
Wow. So that's so exciting. So who are some of the attendees that we can expect at this event? So those that are
Mhm.
in behavioral tech. So some of these platforms that you were just
Yeah,
telling us about, right, would be representative there. Right.
exactly. Audience will be, we've got every national employee benefits broker is participating and speaking. Um, HR leaders at a few large employers, health plans, national and regional, Medicaid MCOs, behavioral health providers,
Wow.
um, investors, every digital mental health and substance use company under the sun,
Wow.
policymakers.
Wow.
It's a good mix. Mhm.
Goodness, goodness. And I'm excited to announce. So next year you'll have to invite me to your conference.
Yeah, not a real party. Right.
Definitely sounds like something I want to be a part of. But I'm also happy to be joining Mentera on World Mental Health Day on October 10th in Las Vegas at their Women's Health at Work conference. And it's about advancing well-being, culture, and equity and technology. I'll be sharing the stage with some people I'm really excited about, such as Shelly Zalis, who's the CEO of the Female Quotient. Trying to think who else is there. Andrea Cooper, who's the chief people officer at Talkspace. The list goes on and on. So excited for that event. I don't think it's too late to register if you happen to be the area and want to support women's health at work for World Mental Health Day with Mentera and myself. And that's extending to you and our attendees here today. So let's see if we have any questions from our audience. Let's see. All right, we got quite a few. Oh my goodness. Oh, let's see if we can get through these. How do companies make sure that the self-service tools, right? Because I think that's what a lot of organizations are really relying upon, are actually utilized.
Oh, great
What are your
question.
thoughts on that? Yeah.
Yeah, a couple things. Number one is ensuring that you're marketing them on a regular basis to
Mhm.
know employees need to know that they exist. And I suspect there are likely some employers who've said, oh, yeah, we do an annual email on Mental Health Awareness Month in May. But the reality is, employees, they're not going to notice these services and solutions until they are seeking them out and might really need them. So
Mhm.
it has to be a consistent messaging over time and reminding folks that it is available. And the other thing is, I've seen a few examples of this. I like when employers can bring together real frontline employees who would use this as part of the procurement process of these solutions. A lot of them, they are not necessarily designed specific for your population. And so you need your population to be at the table when it comes to deciding if this would be a good fit for their peers and your community and your workforce.
Okay. Yeah. And we talked about in the title of this whether or not this talk of mental health employers helping people with their mental health and applying getting all of these tools and resources available to them. So I have a couple questions in the chat box about that. Do we believe this is a fad? I mean, we do know that sometimes there's a flavor of the month when it comes to initiatives, or do we think this is genuinely the future of workplaces where it's going to be continuous business cases that's bought in by executive leadership, that if your employees are mentally well, you're going to have better business outcomes? What's your thoughts on that? Fad or future? Oh, I lost your sound. Okay.
Maybe I'm a little biased, but absolutely, this is the future,
Mhm.
especially the reckoning that happened through the pandemic, the heightened awareness of the impact that mental health has on all of these outcomes that employers are looking for, presenteeism and whatnot. I have a hard time believing we're going to go back. And
Yeah.
now, we have the data. If
Mhm.
mental health is well, physical health outcomes are going to be better. All these costly comorbid conditions are going to be improved. I don't see us going back anytime soon.
No, I've been saying Simone Biles is our first business case study, right? She leaves millions of dollars on the table to protect her mental health and comes back and continues to break records. So, that's the first business case. Like, so if what she can do, we're not even asking our workforce to break records. It's just like, there's just a little
Mhm.
bit of improvement in productivity and innovation goes a long way. So I think that's like our first business case, scenario there. The interesting question here: where do you think generative AI plays in mental health or in HR? Where do you see that going? I mean, there's so much buzz. All of my news feeds is about generative AI. How can we leverage that for what we're trying to accomplish?
Mhm. Yeah, several companies are already embracing that. Startups, rather, innovative mental health companies are. It's already embedded in their solutions, and at least for a few that I've gotten to know, there's still a lot of anxiety, I think, from the provider community
Yeah.
around. Oh, are they going to replace us?
Mhm.
Is AI going to, eliminate providers? And
Right. Uh,
no, not even close. Because really, ultimately, again, going back to that spectrum of innovation, for me, it's the providers. That's where we heal in relationship. And
mhm.
AI is what is helping to augment all of the other things that can be reduced to free up the time of the provider to be able
Mhm.
to maintain that relationship. So I think it's a very positive relationship that AI can have in our space. And it's
Yeah.
going to be a long time before any
Right.
replacement.
And I don't think it's going to replace, I mean, a licensed provider. Maybe it'll help you to say, oh, maybe I need help or whatever it is, but not replace those providers. But hopefully, we'll start to see some progress there. Fad or future? I love this trend that's going on in the comments. DEIB, director titles, budgets for these positions. A whole lot of those positions were created during 2020. Now we're starting to see them be eliminated. Do you think that there's going to be a renewed commitment, or will this be back on HR in terms of cultivating cultures of inclusion and diversity at
Right.
work?
Yeah, super disappointing, but candidly not surprising that yeah, the roles that were created just a few years ago are now eliminated because the reality is the CEO should be the lead
That is the
for
reality.
DEIB. If it was carved out to some other individual who didn't even get a real budget and P&L of their own, how much power were they really going to have to make to implement those changes? And so, for me, it's about continuing to elevate diverse workforces to become leadership at these companies. I don't think, I talk about this a lot in the startup world. How do we get diverse founders to access capital? Well,
Mhm.
the venture capitalists also need to reflect the communities that are underserved.
Yep.
And that's
There
the
you go.
things that needs to happen here too.
Simple as that. Yes, absolutely. I have another fad or future question, and I haven't even heard this term in a while, so I'm interested in hearing that. Flexible spending accounts for choosing workplace benefits. Do you think that's going to be a thing going forward? Flexible spending accounts, or um,
I do. I think flexibility in all areas of work life balance,
mhm,
how people engage with benefits. Of course, a lot of the big companies have returned to office, but I still think that, again, another thing of the pandemic that I don't see going back is across the board flexibility, not just FSAs. So I
Mhm.
think that's
Yeah,
continuing.
that's the key word for everything right now, flexibility in everything. So, and hopefully, if we talk about that or future, the future is flexibility. I think that's the only way we can harmonize. I like to say harmonize rather than balance because I think balance is an unattainable goal. So I believe in work-life harmony. Harmonize our personal lives and our professional lives, right? In order to do that, we've got to provide flexibility in all types of ways, right? And I think that's here to stay, just my opinion. I think that workers, or I mean, we've seen it, those that have been called back to the office, they're like, I'm just not coming back. So I think a strong message is being sent, whether you like it or not, that hybrid flexibility is here to stay, and people are doing or feeling better for it. And I hope that organizations are really, taking heed to it. So any other, as we close out, any other exciting trends or anything we didn't get to talk about today that you're seeing in the workplace that you're excited to share? And someone also wanted to know more information about the conference in November. If you have a site or something like that you can share.
Mm-hmm. Yes, that's a fast one. Behavioralhealthtech.com.
Okay.
It's a little long, but yes, we've got tickets available there, both virtual and in person. So we'd love to see everyone there. But yes, this one other thing I would love to add is, again, Natasha, you've been such an advocate and prime inspirational example of this, is for those in the audience who are comfortable talking about your lived experience. You really, like, the impact that has, you might never know until years down the road or at all, but how that will impact your peers, people who report to you. For me, I think in order to really make powerful change in the workplace, that messaging needs to come from senior leadership, direct managers, and peers. People need to know that they can talk openly about their mental health, that they can raise their hand and access those solutions. But that really starts from leadership talking about why it's important to them. And so if you have a lived experience story, which is almost everyone themselves or somebody in their family, and you're willing to disclose that, I think the pros far outweigh the cons.
Absolutely. Could not agree more. And that's why I talk, because every time I get a message from someone thanking me for the message, or, they don't feel alone. So it goes so much further than what I could ever imagine, sharing my story. And thank you for sharing your story here today as well. And I know that it just, really inspired others. It certainly inspired me. So thank you. So thank you for coming, and all of our attendees for joining today. As usual, we would love for you to take a 5-minute survey that's going to appear today on your screen. Your feedback is very valuable to us. We love to hear what you learned, what you would like to hear next, because your, getting valuable insights is so important to us. Thank you again, Solome. I'm looking forward to meeting you in person very soon. Love that these Care Chats bring so many people together. Thank you, everyone. And we will see you next month for our November Care Chat. All right. Thanks, everyone. Bye.